Vijnanavadaya Totravetraikapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamritaduhe Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome back to the Bhagavad Gita Bhakti Shastri course. We are now in the heart of the 14th chapter. We discussed first the introduction of how the soul becomes entangled within matter, and then we discussed about the characteristics of the three modes. So we discussed about passion, goodness and passion. Now, Ajo Ragatmakam Vidhi Trishna Sanga Samudbhavam. We discussed that verse. So now let's move forward to the characteristic of the mode of ignorance. Before that, let's have a quick overview of the chapter. So we are in the section 3rd, how the modes bind the soul. Let's start with verse 8. Tamastva jnanajam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabhis tannibadhnati bharata. So tamas to ajnanajam vidhi, that the mode of ignorance is born of ignorance. Now this might seem a little peculiar, but we'll discuss this. Mohanam sarvadehinam, that it deludes all living beings. Pramad alasya nidrabhis. And how does it delude? By producing pramad, madness. Alasya is laziness, and nidra is sleep. Tannibadhnati bharata. So tamasto ajnanajam vidhi. What does it mean? When we say ajnan is ignorance, and generally the word tamas is translated as ignorance. So tamoguna is mode of ignorance. So what does it mean that the mode of ignorance is born of ignorance? And the point is that this is a self-perpetuating vicious cycle. At first there is ignorance, and when we act based on that ignorance, we aggravate the influence of the mode of ignorance, and in that way we complicate our life. So there is basic ignorance with which we act, and then we go into deeper ignorance. Just like when a person is having trouble, and that person thinks that by taking alcohol I can become free from that trouble. So that itself is ajnana. I can just forget all my troubles temporarily, but after that they will come back in a far more troubling form than what they were at present. So tamas to ajnanajam vidhi. Ajnanajam vidhi means that idea that alcohol will solve my problems or will free me from my problems is born of ignorance. And when one acts on that, then what happens is one goes into further ignorance. Tamastu ajnanajam vidhi. And when one drinks, so that's how there is some basic ignorance, because of which one acts under the mode of ignorance, and that mode of action in the mode of ignorance further increases the ignorance, and one acts further in mode of ignorance. So one drinks one peg, 2 pegs, 5 pegs, and then one doesn't have money, then one mortgages one's house or gambles and loses a lot of money, then one takes loans, and then one robs. One may even end up killing. There's no limit to how low a blinding addiction, which is characteristic of the mode of ignorance, can drag a person. How low that can drag a person. So tamastu ajnanajam vidhi. Now, generally we think about some people, this person is in the mode of goodness, this person is in the mode of passion, this person is in the mode of ignorance. So we think of it like that, generally speaking. But then Krishna is telling over here, Mohanam sarvadehinam. So he is not used such a describer for everyone. For the earlier modes, he has not used the describer, that this is the mode that binds all living beings. But he is using this point over here, that Mohanam sarvadehinam. It deludes all living beings. Why does it say it deludes all living beings? There are multiple levels of understanding of this. Firstly, the very bodily conception itself is ignorance, and that all living beings are in the bodily conception of life. That itself is one level of tamas. Beyond that, there is also the understanding that everybody has to take sleep, and before sleep we feel tired. So that kind of nidra. Now nidra is a basic bodily function. So now does it mean now when people go into ignorance, people sleep, are they in the mode of ignorance? Yes, they are. So there may be pure devotees who may sleep also for Krishna's pleasure and they dream about Krishna. There are exceptions. In general, pramadalasya nidra bhis. Nidra is something which everybody has to go through. So there is the mode of ignorance which affects everyone, in that sense of everybody needing sleep. But there is a necessary contact with the mode of ignorance, and there is unnecessary aggravation of the mode of ignorance. So the aggravation means that the mode of people, let's say small people drink or take drugs, and by that they make their situation worse. So pramad alasya nidra bhis. So alasya is laziness. We have to do something but we refuse to do it. We put off doing it. Pramada means madness. Pramadalasya nidra bhis. Tannibadnati bharata. Tannibadnati. That binds us in souls. So here Krishna is talking about something which is very important. He's talking about tamastu ajnanajam vidhi. So the mode of ignorance is born of ignorance. It deludes all living beings, and that is a common factor. But in some people, those who become lethargic, those who become intoxicated, infatuated, especially by destructive substances, tannibadnati bharata. So now, so Prabhupada writes that the word tu is very significant. It means at the mode of ignorance is a very peculiar qualification of the embodied soul. It is just the opposite of goodness. So goodness was characterized by prakasham, and this is characterized by ajnanam. Ajnanam and prakasham. So ajnanam is a darkness or ignorance or unawareness of what is the truth, and prakasham is the illumination that enables one to see the right thing. So tamastu ajnanajam vidhi. Now in these three verses, Krishna has given us a quick summary of the three modes, a brief introduction to each of them with their primary characteristics. So now the whole point of this discussion is that the modes bind. So the introduction is also that sattvam rajastamaiti guna prakriti sambhavam. And nibadnati. So Nibadnati was there in all the verses also. So now Krishna gives a summary. It was one verse introduction, but now after that there's a one verse summary in this 14.9 where Krishna says exactly in one word how these three modes bind the person. So let's look at it now. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajah karmani bharata jnanam avritti tamaha pramade sanjayatyauta. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati. That in Sattva Guna, one experiences sukha. In Rajoguna, or rather, one pramade sanjayatyuta. In Sattva Guna, one is bound by sukha. In Rajoguna, it is by karma. And tamas, which is, what is its characteristics? Jnanam avritya. Once knowledge is covered, what happens? Pramade sanjayatyuta. Pramade means madness. So primarily here the defining characteristics are given that when one feels relatively happy, relatively satisfied, when one is in the mode of goodness, yes, I know more than others, I live purer and better than others, I'm happy living this way. So this is good in one sense that one is not living sinfully, but it also having a destructive effect in terms of not having been able to free oneself, elevate oneself further from the mode of ignorance to transcend the whole gamut of material existence. That is not what is happening. So now, as compared to that, karma is a person wants more and more and more. Raja karmani bharata. Because of that, one person gets caught in karma. So we discussed trishna and lobha. Attachment of the characteristics of the mode of passion was raga and trishna. Raga is for what one has, trishna is for what one wants. and that both of them cause bondage to karma. And pramade sanjayatyota. So in ignorance one becomes bound to madness. Here the word madness doesn't necessarily mean a person who is admitted in the mental asylum. It basically means that a person who is terribly in distress because of the who is acting in self-destructive ways. That person may sometimes be aware of one's distress, person may not be aware of one's own distress, but basically the actions are in distressing and destructive ways, acting for one's own distress and for others' distress also. So the person may not intend to act distressfully, may not be intending to cause pain to one. Generally nobody does that. There are some people who have terrible habits. There are people who are called, who are known as cutters. Somehow this is such a perverse idea that some people cut their own body, and when they take a knife and then they cut their skin, and then when they feel pain because of the blood coming out, they feel some relief by that. Actually they're inflicting torture on the body. This cutting can be a form of addiction which can make people, which we need even psychiatric attention sometimes. So what happens is these people, they somehow develop the perverse idea that there are so many troubles and they need some sensation, just like some people go and watch horror movies where they have whatever anxieties and worries and irritations in their own lives. They want to forget that. So most people may want to go and watch some entertainment, but some people may want to go be horrified. They may want to see something horrible by which they can forget their suffering. So like that. Similarly, so there's some people may cut their bodies. They use a knife and often they cut the bodies near their in parts which cannot be seen by everyone, and they cut like that, and then when the pain comes because of the cutting, the intensity of that pain makes them forget everything else, and that's how they get some sort of kick. Says, oh, I'm getting that stimulation, I don't need anything else, and they just forget everything else, which seems to be quite absurd and irrational, but that's how people do it. So now Krishna will describe in the next verse how there is competition between the modes. Let's look at 14.10. Rajastamascha vibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata rajah sattvam tamaschaiva tamah sattvam rajastatha. So rajastamascha vibhuya, that cha abhibhuya, that for conquering the modes of passion and ignorance, abhibhuya, overcoming them, sattvam bhavati bharata, sometimes the mode of goodness triumphs, and when it triumphs, what happens? Rajah sattvam tamaschaiva, sometimes raja triumphs, overcoming sattvam and tamas, and sometimes tamah triumphs, overcoming sattva and rajas. So in that way a person starts feeling steady, a person starts feeling not steady but unsteady. Why unsteady? Because these modes are all acting at different times in different ways. So a person may be, we have seen sometimes the picture of a person being pulled by three lines, a puppet. See it in Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita also. There is this, there's Durga Devi and she has three puppeteers, or maybe three female people also. They are representing the three modes and everybody is being pulled. So what does it mean? Now all of us, we are, these three modes are not, are neither discrete nor static in terms of how they affect us in our lives. Three modes are of course discrete in terms of their existence. There is a mode of passion, there is a mode of ignorance, there is a mode of goodness. These three modes are there, but in terms of how they influence us, that is not static. This is neither static nor discrete necessarily. Not static means it's not that if in the morning after I take a bath I feel myself in the mode of goodness, I till the end of the class, till the end of the day throughout I'll be in goodness. Now practically speaking, if we start attending a class, we can see maybe initially we have decided, yes, hearing the class is important. I have to understand the philosophy. I have to be clear about understanding these things. So we are in mode of goodness. We are interested. But then as the class goes on, then the other modes start pulling us. Then I need to sleep 7 hours. But yesterday night I slept for 6 hours 55 minutes. So maybe I can take a 5-minute nap and make up. So that is the mode of ignorance talking. And then other time saying, okay, I'm attending this class, it's 1 hour or 1.5 hours, but there's so many other things to do. When will this get over? I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. That is the mode of passion speaking. So we can practically say that when we are trying to do some activity, the other modes are pulling us. So now if I'm trying to hear a class, and at that time the mode of passion starts pulling, and then you have to do something, come on, go here, go there, go do that, do that. That mode of passion creates restlessness. And how do we overcome that restlessness? Either we give in to the mode of passion, or we fight against the mode of passion. Now, if we give in to the mode of passion, then we say, okay, if we are in a physical class, attending a class, then unless we are extremely disturbed or something, we won't walk out of the class, we'll just tolerate it. But if you are hearing a class online, we think, okay, just switch it off now, let me hear it after some time, I'll do some other things. Or we get a phone call, and then we use the phone call as a pretext to go out. That's maybe the correct. Now, I'm not saying that these sort of interruptions cannot come because of genuine reasons. It's possible, definitely. And if there are emergencies or extremely urgent situations, then they have to be dealt with, no doubt. But the point is, we are just trying to observe how these modes compete in our own psychology. So, the mode of ignorance, it may say that, this is so tiresome. I thought I had finished all my studying business when I got out of college. Now, I don't want to get into this, exams and things like that. I came to spiritual life for freedom from tension. And these exams mean more tension. What is this spiritual life? So, this sort of lethargy is characteristic of the mode of ignorance. Now, certainly, if we have the idea that spiritual life is a place for relaxation, I want to relax from everything else. Well, then that is not a proper understanding of spiritual life. Spiritual life does give us relaxation, but that relaxation comes through purification. That relaxation doesn't come from just a deactivation. Deactivation means, just don't do any activity. Relax. No. But the real relaxation for the soul is when the soul is fixed in the service of Krishna. When the soul is purified and is situated in loving harmony with Krishna and doing various services for Krishna's pleasure out of love for Krishna. That is where the soul is actually happy truly. So that is not deactivation but purification. Deactivation means actually we just succumb to the mode of ignorance, just become deactive, don't do anything. That doesn't lead to much elevation or advancement. So these are the different modes which may influence us in different ways. And this conflict underlies most other conflicts that people talk about. Now, one of the biggest conflicts that people face in life is indecision. Indecisiveness rather. Indecision is able to decide in specific situations. If I do this or do that. But indecisiveness is in general an inability to act decisively. Should I do this or should I do that? So, if we don't take decisions, then life takes decisions for us. We have to, life doesn't stop for us. We have to move forward in life. And if there's a cricket match and there's a last over of the cricket match, and then say the opposing team requires 10 runs to win, then the captain has to take a decision. Okay, should I give the ball to this bowler or that bowler for the last over? So that sort of decisions just have to be taken. They cannot avoid taking the decision. So this is very obvious when we come to such scenarios like sports, where everything literally has to move forward. But in our own life, sometimes we can drag things. Should I take this career or should I take this career? Should I take this job or should I take this job? Should I marry this person or should I marry that person? Or whatever. There are so many decisions that we have to take. And we can keep dragging our feet. So now dragging our feet is generally the characteristic of the mode of ignorance. Of course, dragging one's feet is definitely not the same as thoughtfulness. In thoughtfulness, although there may not be some external decision coming up, but there is processing of the data, there is consideration of the choices and their consequences that is there. So it's based on mature reasoning, giving due time for that, mature reasoning at a conscious level and also at a subconscious level, contemplation to understand our gut instinct, our deepest feelings. So that is different. Whereas in mode of ignorance, one is inactive, but one is not even contemplative. So we could say that the characteristics of three modes is goodness is contemplative and active. Passion is simply active, but not very contemplative. And ignorance is neither active nor contemplative. So that's how these three modes are. So externally speaking, sometimes goodness and ignorance may appear very similar, but there's a difference. Two people may be sitting for a class, and somebody will say, "I don't have time for a class. I go away. I won't come for the class." So it might seem that both are similar. These two people are similar. Both are sitting for the class, but while sitting for the class is attentively hearing, the other is calmly sleeping in the class. So both are externally, yes, both are in the temple. One person has gone out of the temple. The person who has gone out of the temple, not wanting to hear the class or going away to do so many other things, that person may be in the mode of passion. So externally, goodness and ignorance may look similar, but internally they are radically opposite. So we see this. Generally we think of these modes as lateral, as vertical. There's ignorance, then there is passion, then there is goodness, and then there is transcendence. So that is definitely true. But in terms of the journey, the modes can move up and down very rapidly. So it's not necessary that a person will go to passion to go through to ignorance. We may be chanting Hare Krishna in the morning, and we may be in goodness, and we start feeling tired, and then from goodness, there's a shortcut to ignorance. So suddenly, I just go to sleep. From now we may wonder, we don't know we go into passion. We can go into passion, and sometimes passion is a way to protect ourselves from ignorance. So for example, if we start feeling very sleepy, then we wake up. So how do we wake up? We wake up. The best way to stay waking is by walking. Stand up and start walking. By walking, what happens essentially is that we stay protected, we stay calm, we stay focused. Maybe not necessarily in terms of being attentive to the whole chanting of the holy names, but at least we stay attentive in terms of focusing on the whole, at least uttering the holy name. We are walking along, so and the mouth is moving, and we are awake. Some level of awareness and consciousness is better than just the tamoguna of sleeping, being half asleep or being fully asleep. So what I was saying is that we can go from, because goodness and ignorance are extremely similar, we can go down very rapidly. Sometimes having a bit of passion, just washing one's face, walking a little bit, that can help quite a bit in trying to fight off the spell of ignorance. So in this way, basically there is a competition between the modes, and we all have to battle with this competition and overcome this competition. And how do we overcome? Actually, we have to overcome the lower modes with the higher mode. That means, to understand this simply is like, if we are at a crossroad with three options, if you have come to a particular place and there is fork, one road goes like this, one road goes like this, one road goes like this. So in that fork, which do I choose? Accordingly, my destination will come. So now imagine a road in which there is a fork at every moment. So a fork at every moment. I'm take one direction over here, move a little ahead. Again, there are forks. Again, there are forks. Again, there are forks. Forks means basically there are road forks in three ways. 1, 2, 3. So we have to choose. So our situation is like that. Continuously we have to choose. Will I be in goodness? Will I be in passion? Will I be in ignorance? How will I act? Accordingly, our life will move forward. So we have to consistently choose the mode of goodness. And this conflict is going on, and this actually helps us to make sense of much of the confusion that we experience in our lives. The confusion in terms of sometimes we feel one way, other times we feel another way, and we can't understand why my feelings are changing like this so rapidly. So the way to understand this is by recognizing that actually all this is because of the modes. So rather than getting carried away by the modes, once say that, oh, this is goodness, this is passion, this is ignorance, let me choose goodness. And then as I choose, the goodness will increase within me. But basically these moods are in conflict. So now first, in verses 6, 7, 8, Krishna has given an introductory characteristic of how the mode binds. Now after this, after talking about the competition among the various modes, conflict among the various modes, now Krishna will talk about within this conflict. See, basically it's a conflict that is continuously going on, and some mode triumphs. So when a particular mode triumphs, what is the psychological condition of a person? That will be described in 11, 12, 13. So essentially what is being described here is the more or less the first was a static characteristic of how the mode binds, and then the dynamic characteristic of how a particular mode triumphs among the competition among the modes. That is described in 11, 12, 13. So 11th is also describing the mode of goodness. 12th is like there was in 6th. 12th is describing passion like the 7th, and 13th is describing ignorance like was described in 8th. But we will see that there is some difference between these two. So Srila Prabhupada connects the modes with the actions. This will be explored much more in the later chapters, especially 17th chapter. By manifestation of particular activities, it can be understood in what mode of nature one is situated. So by looking at the externals, we can get a glimpse of the internal, not entirely, but we can get some understanding. So here now the activities will be described. When a particular mode becomes prominent, sarvadhareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate jnanam yada tada vidyad vivruddham sattvamithyuta. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin. Sarvadvareshu. At all doors, dehesmin. So for the body there are various doors. Which are these doors? Navadvare pure dehi. We had discussed this in 5.13 in the Bhagavad Gita. There are nine gates to this body. So sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasham upajayate. Prakasham upajayate means that prakash, that illumination is there. So when there is a darkness, then for example, if I had to go out of this room and there's darkness, I may not be able to make out where the door is, where the wall is. And even if I go out of the door, I may not be able to come. What is next after the door? Are there steps? Is there a sliding place? Is there a straight road? Is there an elevator? What is there after that? If there is no prakash, then I can't see anything clearly. But when there is prakash, then I can see things clearly. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasha upajayate. Then jnanam yada tada vidyad vivruddham sattva. Jnanam yada tada vidyad. So when there is jnana, at that time, know it. So there is jnana and vidya, the words may seem to be similar over here, but they are having different contexts. That when there is jnana, when there is the illumination of knowledge, so prakasha of jnana. So knowledge illuminates in its own way. When I feel some coughing sensation, for me it's just a cough. But then if I go to a doctor and get myself diagnosed, then I find that actually it is not just a cough. It is some serious issue which I have to deal with. What is that? It may be some disease. It may be maybe there's some TB germs which have infected my chest or whatever. So the jnana leads to prakasha. When there is medical knowledge, then one can look at the symptoms and understand better. Similarly, with respect to this also, when there is mode of a goodness is there, when one's pathways are illuminated, that means one understands. See, the senses are the doors through which our consciousness travels. Consciousness can go one way, second way, third way, fourth way, and whichever way it goes, the choices bring consequences. So when one is able to perceive the consequences, that means there is light over there. So illumination is what is important, and without illumination there is delusion, there is confusion, and there is stupefaction. Person acts like a foolish person, deluded person, and person acts self-destructively. So when the senses are illumined, that means that a person knows what should be done, what should not be done, how I should act and how I should not act. Jnanam yada tada vidyad. So when there is jnana, then vivruddham sattvamithyuta. That this is the mode of goodness. So let's look at it. So Prabhupada writes that one can see the right position, one can hear things in the right position, one can taste things in the right position. And it's a curious word Prabhupada uses, position. Position means how that particular object interacts with us, how we choose to deal with that particular thing, and what effect we let it have on us. Food has to be eaten. So that is a natural human function. But in mode of ignorance, a person may eat something which may be harmful. A person in a mode of passion, person may eat something just because of the taste and not think about how it's going to affect the health. We'll talk more specifically about food in various modes in the 17th chapter. But here the important point is to recognize that there are 3 modes, and when one sees the actions and understand the position of those objects or those actions with our consciousness, this is going to affect me in this way, then that is in the mode of goodness. So now let's move forward. Lobha pravrittirarambha karmanam shama spruha rajasyetani jayante vivriddhe bharatarshava. So lobha pravrittirarambha. Lobha is greed. Pravrittirarambha. Pravrittirarambha means pravritti is action according to one's inclination. Pravritti. Arambha is sarvarambha parityagi. So Krishna has used this word arambha in various contexts in the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvarambha parityagi comes in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita when he's talking about the qualities that endear a devotee to Krishna. And yasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjita. In 4.19 also Krishna has used the word arambha. Also arambha in Hindi often means, in Hindi or Marathi or the other vernacular languages, it means beginning, to begin. So arambha doesn't always have the same meaning in Sanskrit. Arambha can mean that, but arambha also means endeavor. So there is sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjita. There when Krishna is talking about in the 4th chapter 19th verse about the karma yogi who is illumined by knowledge and so is freed from sinful reactions. There he is using the word arambha in terms of one whose every endeavor is purified by the fire of knowledge and is freed from the contamination of selfishness. So like that, here arambha refers to endeavor. So pravrittir arambha. Pravritti means action. Arambha means endeavor. The person is ready to endeavor, work very hard. Karmanam ashamah spruha. So what kind of endeavor? Karmanam. Karmanam is this is fruitive activity. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So that kind of activity, karma. So within karma kanda, ashamaha spruha, and then behind all that there is desire. But what kind of desire? Ashamaha. Ashamaha is that which cannot be satisfied. So shama and dama are the characteristics of Brahmana, and shama means calming down the mind, calm down the mind. But ashamaha means that which cannot be calmed down. Ashamaha spruha. Rajasya etani jayante. Rajasya, by Rajoguna, this is one the person is known. Etani jayante vivriddhe bharatarshava. So vivriddhe bharatarshava. Such a person, when the mode of Rajoguna increases, the mode of passion increases, what happens? Vivriddhe bharatarshava. So these are the characteristics of bharatarshava. What are all the characteristics here? Lobha pravrittir arambha. So there is greed. So lobha is the prominent character, as we'll see later on when Krishna will talk about his characteristics once again. Lobha is a very prominent characteristic. Why? Because the primary feature thing that happens when one is in mode of passion is more. Now that more, when it is directed towards sexually attractive objects, then it manifests as lust. When it is more directed towards things, then it may become greed. So, but that more in terms of matter, have this much, but I want more. I want more. I want more. Lobha pravrittirarambha. So Krishna is describing over here how these three modes affect a person in terms of within their internal competition. Previous verse also Krishna used the word vivruddham. Here also the word vivruddhe. So vivruddha means when this becomes strong, when this becomes predominant. So at certain times, certain modes become predominant. When a particular mode becomes predominant, then what happens? Lobha pravrittir arambha karmanam ashamah spruha. Karmanam ashamah spruha. Ashama. So insatiable desire. Rajasya etani jayante. Now this may lead to a question that now do these modes create those feelings? How exactly does it happen? That is it that a person is greedy by default, by nature the person is greedy, by disposition, or by imposition of the modes the person becomes greedy? So are the modes a matter of disposition, or are the modes a matter of imposition? Disposition means innate inclination. Imposition means something which is external pressure. So actually it's both. It's a matter of disposition as well as imposition. Not exactly imposition in terms of a fatalistic force. It's not that irresistible force is there. But certain people are, by their defining nature, based on their past karma, more greedy than others. That this sort of diversity is always there in human society. But beyond that, there are some people who are placed in circumstances, or who choose circumstances that provoke greed within them. That means if a person just keep watching a lot of advertisements, or say watches TV which involves descriptions of huge amount of prosperity materially, because of that people start thinking, oh, this is wonderful, this is the way I want to live, and and that fuels greed more and more and more and more. So desire for more and more, that's how it increases. So lobha pravrittirarambha karmanam ashamah spruha. Rajasya etani jayante vivruddhe kurunan vivruddhe bharatarshabha. So they are, or we understand from the point of view of lust also, there is some level of lust that is natural, biological, we could say, the male-female attraction, and within that also there some people have a higher sex drive, some people have a lower sex drive. But the point is that whatever be the sex drive of a person, that person can either increase it or decrease it. And today's whole socio-cultural environment is meant to increase it more and more and more. Now, when it increases more and more, the result of that is people live in a state of artificial sexual stimulation and perpetual dissatisfaction because of that. So that is not natural. That is not just something which is a disposition. Is it an imposition? Well, it is something which is chosen by a person, and once a person makes a choice, then there is imposition. See, we are forced to act as we choose to desire. We are forced to act as we choose to desire. What does it mean? We have the choice of desiring, but once we choose the desire, okay, this is what I want to do, then the modes take up and tack. Then after that it becomes very difficult to resist it. So imagine that there are, earlier I had given the example of a road with 3 forks. So that would seem to say that we alone choose things. Okay, we choose goodness, we choose passion, we choose ignorance. That is at one level true, but now let's consider another example which is a little more subtle, which illustrates the point somewhat better. The point is that imagine that there is a river with 3 different currents in that river. So one current is going this way, one current is going this way, another current is going this way. So now a boat person who is trying to maneuver the boat, that person can choose which current to get into. But once a person chooses the current, that means some part of the river, this happens sometimes, there are multiple waves at multiple layers and multiple parts of the rivers. So in some cases the current is like this, and the water is moving like this. Another places the current is going like this. Third place the current is going like this. So now, depending on which current the boat person chooses, once a particular current is chosen, then the waves will take the person in that direction. So there is some amount of choice in terms of which current to place oneself in. But once one has placed oneself in a particular current, then one is taken in that direction. Whoosh, this one. It's very difficult to resist after that. So like that, we are forced to act as we choose to desire. We are forced to act as we choose to desire. So now, we can we choose our desires? We say that, no, doesn't the modes determine what kind of desires also I'll have? No, the modes don't determine our specific desires. The modes affect us in terms of which desires may be presented before us, but it's not necessary that they affect us and they shape our desires entirely. They determine our desires entirely. They are contributive factors. They are not decisive factors. Ultimately, we do have free will. So, a person who has been, for example, habituated to meat eating throughout one's life, and not just habituated because of one's own attraction to the meat eating, but habituated also because that is the food that people have always been eating in their culture, in their tradition, in their family. If that is the case, that's how people have always been eating, then what happens? Then that's what people eat eventually. And they don't even think about it. So then does this person really have a choice in terms of whether to eat vegetarian food or non-vegetarian food? We could say that yes, technically yes, that person always has a choice, but that may not come in the framework of thought only. Why should I not eat non-vegetarian food? That's how we have all been eating, and that's how we'll keep eating. So to come out of that framework, one needs some input from somewhere else. So somebody meets a vegetarian, somebody reads something about vegetarianism, so then a person gets exposed to, what kind of brutality happens when animals are killed. Then by that a person recognizes, and then the person raises up, chooses a better option instead of choosing that particular option. So in this way, a person can make choices. It is not necessary we can choose our desires. It's not that we will be able to choose an entirely new desire about which we have never heard. There may be a range within which we can choose. Even within meat, when a person is addicted to meat, it's not that a person has to eat a specific kind of meat itself. A person may choose pork or beef or whatever. Different kinds of meat are there. So depending on how a person chooses to execute the desire, after that a person gets addicted. So we can all choose desires based on our intelligence, based on our knowledge, based on our culture, and based on our free will. So there are many factors. It's not an exhaustive list. This is just an indicative list. But the point over here is that we do have free will. And it is also true that once we make a choice, then that free will almost disappears. It doesn't disappear entirely at any time. We can always make changes. But certain actions have consequences. And those consequences cannot be changed. And some consequences, actually all actions have consequences, but certain actions have massive consequences. And then therefore one has to be much more cautious while making these major decisions in life. So the basic point of our discussion right now is that certain modes have certain characteristics. That means, like going back to the waves example, these waves are a little bit more, this current is a little bit calmer current. This current is a more turbulent current. And this current is like an eddy. It will just keep moving round and round and round and round. And so then I have to choose which current I want to go into. So now we may say, if somebody is going choices like this, this is calm, this is turbulent, and this is very violent. This is more disturbing and this is more violent. Then obviously somebody will choose a person will choose a calm current. Yes, that we may say the choice is very obvious. But things are not so clear when all these currents are inside us and they have already affected us. They affect our perception. For a person who is in the mode of passion, life in the mode of goodness may not look very attractive. Person in the mode of passion, answering, maybe texting people and responding to emails, answering to cell phones, and doing so many things. The person is taken to a calm, serene beach. It's boring over here. You check for 6 people say there's no range for the internet. What do I do now? Start feeling agitated just by that. People go to a peaceful place to relax, but often the irony is so much that that which is causing them agitation, when they are freed from that, that freedom causes them agitation. So the endless messages and calls that are coming, that's what is causing me agitation. But when I go to a place when that is not there, that agitation is, I've been freed from that agitation because the network is not there over there, then what happens? I feel, oh, I don't have any connection. And that causes me agitation. So this, if we think about it, what it indicates is that the mode of passion will make us agitated whatever situation we are in. So it's not the cell phone and its messages that are cause of agitation. It's as long as I'm in the mode of passion, whether I'm in an area where there is network or in an area where there is no network, I will be agitated. If I change myself to the mode of goodness, then wherever I am, I will not become agitated. Of course, this doesn't mean that our disposition can survive in all positions. Certain places are in the mode of passion. If we go into those places, we will be affected by the mode of passion. We can't avoid that. Therefore, we have to be careful in our choices. That as devotees, we try to avoid places which are too much in the mode of passion, the ignorance. Of course, we can't avoid entirely, but we try to avoid external stimulations which can lead to certain internal reactions in terms of emotions, and then they lead to certain actions. So, lobha pravrittirarambha. Now, today we see society is so much in the mode of passion. Now, there is a whole form of addiction which we discussed earlier. It's called workaholism. Workaholism means people just become workaholics. Work. 24 hours a day. Work. Do nothing but work. And that sort of behavior can be very damaging for a person. Very damaging. Because there's no balance. Not even when the person doesn't have time for spiritual life. Person doesn't have time for other aspects of material life also. Person doesn't have time for practicing, for being with one's family, for doing other basic activities also. Just work. Unidimensional existence person has. That's very harmful for holistic living, even at a material level, not to speak of at a spiritual level. Now, in this kind of workaholism, and it is not a small thing. The problem with other kinds of addictions is that they are generally harmful, and it's visible that they are harmful. A person who is alcoholic, there might be some glamour in becoming alcoholic. Cool, let's drink. We all drink. It's modern, it's fashionable, it's cool. People think like that. But then if people start doing excess of that, then you understand. People have this idea: drink but don't become drunk. Drink but don't become drunk. Now that is as impractical an advice as a person can get, because it's not a matter that person doesn't have self-control, but that if drinking becomes an escape way, then when one really is in trouble and needs an escape, at that time one will escape along that way, and one will not be able to understand how far I am going along that way, and will go much further than what one intends to. That's how people become trapped. But as compared to, say, alcoholism and workaholism, the problem is that is highly glamorized in today's society. Oh, this person, he has not taken a leave for the last 7 years. Every single day working so hard. This person works for 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day. Now, actually speaking, this sort of unidimensional obsession with work is not something which is to be glamorized. It simply indicates that the person is very viciously gripped by the mode of passion. Very strongly, viciously gripped by the mode of passion. And is not able to come out of it. So, now, of course, there may be situations where there are project deadlines and there are emergencies where a person has to work hard. And we may ourselves choose the mode of passion at particular times when we have to get things done. We may choose it. So I want to do things fast and I will do it this way. That is fine. It's not that I think, in my mental panel, there is this goodness, passion, ignorance. Not that I press a button, now passion button, now goodness button, now transcendence, now ignorance button. Not like that. There's no mental panel like that inside us. But the point is that we all go into certain behavioral modes at different times. And sometimes passion is required. But if that becomes a normal way of functioning, then that can take a toll on us psychologically, it can take a toll on us emotionally, it can take a toll on us in terms of our relationships and our balance in life. So this workaholism is a very common form of addiction which is there in today's society. And it is also in one sense glamorized, because people, you can get awards, you can get perks, you can get salary raises, and that way one can work. And the problem is that with workaholism, the mode of passion is one is never satisfied with what one is present or doing it right now. Say in devotional service we say we should stay busy. We should stay busy. If we stay busy, if we stay engaged, then we will not fall into Maya. That is true. But there is a difference. Prabhupada was busy, but Prabhupada was never passionate. We are passionate, but we are not busy often. What does it mean? Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. We do a lot, but end up doing nothing much. We can be productive, and we can be busy and productive without being passionate. And we can be passionate without being productive. Like there's a fan. The fan, it moves a lot, but it doesn't get anywhere. It's moving. If I keep a fan on for a whole day, if that fan's motion, whatever energy was required for the motion of the fan, if that energy was used to move a car wheel, the car could have gone a substantial amount of distance in that much energy. A fan moves round, but it doesn't go anywhere. So at least the fan serves some other function of getting circulating air. But our mind, when it moves like a fan, round and round, this goes round and gets nowhere. So often our thoughts are like that, and when our thoughts are like that, then our actions are uncoordinated and incompletely executed. It's little bit of this, a little bit of that, little bit of that. And yes, we can bite into many pies, little bit at different times. But if that is also a plan according to, okay, I'll do a little bit of this work, little bit of this work. But if I just get into things without thinking much, and then whatever I feel like I do now, then I won't have any balance in my life. And that can be very harmful. So this mode of passion, we can see it very evidently in today's society in terms of how people are dominated by this ethos of extremely imbalanced lifestyle in terms of working too much. So workaholism. Vivruddhe Bharatarshabha. Now Prabhupada writes in the purport, there is no end to sense gratification. So there is no end. No matter how much one has, one always wants more. That is the meaning of ashamaha. So what is it? Yeah, ashamaha spruha. That the desire never ends. Then after that, now Krishna will describe the mode of ignorance. Aprakasho pravrittischa pramado moha evacha tamasyetani jayante vivruddhe kuru nandana. So here Krishna is describing the mode of ignorance as opposed. Now, if you look at the words, the word prakasha had been used for the mode of goodness. Sarvadvareshu dehesmin prakasham upajayate. And the word pravritti had been used for the mode of passion. Lobha pravrittirarambha. But now Krishna is here using the word aprakasho apravrittischa. That means there is neither the illumination of goodness nor is there the action of passion. And what is there? There is simply immobilization. So pramada moha evacha. There is illusion and there is intoxication, madness. Pramada tamasya etani jayante viruddhe kurunandana. So Krishna is using different words to refer to Arjuna here. Kurutandana, Bharatarshabha. So he's telling that yes, you are all these great, you have these great connections, you are an illustrious person. But understand that these modes are formidable. And viruddhe, they can overpower anyone. They can overpower even you. Vivruddhe Kurunandana. So now, here, when Krishna is talking about the mode of ignorance, earlier it was pramada alasya nidra abhis, but now here is pramado moha evacha. So the nidra is not mentioned because we are not talking about now the necessary bodily function of sleep. We are talking about unnecessary and undesirable aggravation of a particular mode. Within the competition among three modes, when one particular mode becomes dominant, then that shakes up the person. And that makes that person act in undesirable ways. Of course, in goodness, the action may be relatively speaking better. It may be desirable in some ways. But even that keeps one in bondage. But in passion and ignorance, it's much worse. So tamasya etani jayante. So there's pramad. When tamasya is more, tamaguna is more, then what happens? At that time there is pramad and moha. What is pramad and moha? Pramad is ignorance. So pramad is as madness. Moha. So there are two forms. Then there is sadism and masochism. Masochism is sadism means to cause pain to others, and by causing pain to others, one gets pleasure oneself. And masochism is one causes pain to oneself and one gets pleasure. I talked about cutting. That is masochism. One cuts oneself and one gets pain. There's some people who do self-flagellation. Whip oneself, and through that one gets some pleasure. So especially, then there is, in the mode of passion there is male-female attraction, but when the mode of passion and mode of ignorance get combined, then even sexuality gets perverted in various different ways. And people start engaging in various kinds of unnatural forms of sex, and there is sometimes people beat each other and they do all sort of things, and they think that sort of thing is pleasure. So that is actually where this whole obsession with playing different kinds of roles and doing different kinds of things to somehow extract some pleasure from the body. That is, so normally sex is in the mode of passion, but this all sorts of distorted expressions of sexuality that is largely in the mode of ignorance. So now here what is happening, that pramado moha evacha, there is madness. So addictions are an example of this pramada. Moha is illusion. Now moha, we could say that actually is there for all living beings. Yes, that is definitely true. All of us are in moha. I am not the body, I am the soul. We have forgotten that and we are thinking I am the body. So that is the moha which all of us are in. But here in ignorance, often there is not only just the moha about one's spiritual identity, but there is even moha about one's material capacity. Somebody may be a poverty-stricken person, somebody may be weakling, and a person thinks I'm going to be the next world wrestling champion, and that person starts trying, I can beat anyone, I can fight with anyone. So that is moha. So there is not only illusion about there's illusion about one's own material capacities also. So that sort of thing is, especially we see it in drunkards, but we can see it in other people also. Tamasya etani jayante. Tamasya means in the mode of ignorance. Etani jayante. That this is born of the mode of ignorance. And vivruddhe kurunandana. So after describing this, Krishna now describes the next verse about the different kinds of deaths that people go through. That means, after describing that, different people live in different modes. This is the way the characters of the mode, that was 6, 7, 8. Now 11, 12, 13 is, within the competition among the modes, different people are influenced differently. The modes, when a one particular mode becomes dominant, this is the characteristic. Now Krishna will describe, when a person has a particular characteristic, when that person dies, what happens? Why? Because they're on battlefield, and death is an important, inevitable, probable happening that is going to happen there. And also, the importance of death has been talked earlier in 8th chapter. So Krishna will talk about how this will lead to a post-mortem, a post-death destination. That we'll discuss in our next class. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.